Well, I'm rather excited for this week's fighter verse, and I want us to see how especially appropriate it is to call this verse our fighter verse. It's one sentence and again one verse. Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. And again, as we get ready to read it, I want you to see how especially appropriate it is to call this verse our fighter verse. So here we go. Exodus 14, verse 14 reads, "The Lord will fight for you." Now, don't you think that's really appropriate for a fighter verse? But it doesn't stop there. Exodus 14, verse 14 reads completely, "The Lord will fight for you, comma, watch this, and you have only to be silent." I'll read it one more time. "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." I hope that you'll take this one verse and keep thinking upon it, keep meditating upon it all week. But in order to do so, there's something really important we have to do. We have to keep this verse in context. And something helpful to keep any verse in context is to always read what is said before and to read what is said after. So let's read what is said before. Start with verse 10 of chapter 14. We'll just read it so we can put it all in context. "When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, 'Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us in bringing us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness.' And Moses said to the people, 'Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again.'" And then here comes our fire verse. "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." Let's just read verse 15, just the immediate verse afterwards. "The Lord said to Moses, 'Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward.'" I think this is so neat. So to keep it in context, you have to know this. And what we just read, here's the people of Israel. Behind them are the Egyptians marching after them. What's in front of Israel? In front of Israel is the Red Sea. And I'm pretty sure you are familiar with the account of crossing the Red Sea. So picture it. Here's this great nation of Israel running away from the Egyptians. And they come to this spot where ahead of them is this Red Sea. And we're supposed to cross that to get to safety. And what's behind them? Everything that threatens their safety, the Egyptians. I read it put this way this morning. The people of Israel were trapped in a weak place. Why is that? They could do nothing to help themselves. Before them, right in front of them, is the Red Sea. That looked like death to try to cross that. Behind them is the Egyptians marching them down, the greatest army in the world. What does that look like? Death chasing after us. What are we to do? We can do nothing. We are helpless. And so I think it's right. They were trapped in a weak place. Now watch this. How did they get to that weak place? This is where God had led them. I believe it's chapter 12 is where God leads Israel out of Egypt, rescues them out of Egypt. And God led them to this place. Isn't that amazing? Put it together. They were trapped in a weak place where behind them was danger, in front of them is danger. They can do nothing to help themselves. They are trapped in a weak place, and it is God who led them there. Why? Well, I think this is true. When I read it again this morning, it just really put things in perspective for me. Listen to this. We don't really understand what it means for God to be our strength and our salvation until we are put in a weak enough place where he is our only option. I'll read it one more time. We don't really understand what it means for God to be our strength and our salvation until we are put in a weak enough place where He is our only option. So can you see it? Here they're in this weak place and they cry out to Moses, what are we supposed to do? This is going to be a grave for us. Egypt's chasing us down ahead of us, trying to cross that Red Sea. That looks like death too. We don't know what to do. We're in a weak place. And what does Moses say? The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. Now watch what happens after they cross the Red Sea. Listen to Exodus chapter 15, verse 2. After crossing the Red Sea, what do they gain from that experience? The Lord is my strength and my song, and He has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise Him, my Father's God, and I will exalt Him. So ask yourself this question. Why does God lead us to be in a position of a weak place?